One question that you might have as a singer and you might be contemplating a lot, especially if you're going to prepare for a performance or you're practicing a song. You want to know, should you actually lower the key of a song? Well, the straight up answer is a no. And by the end of this video, you will understand why is it that singing in the original key is almost always a better option than singing in a lower key, and how by actually lowering the key of a song, you are actually doing your practice a disservice. Hey, it's JJ here, and if this is your first time watching my videos, I help singers like you unlock your high notes fast by showing you how you can access your high complete mixed voice vocal placement. And if that sounds like what you need, then click the subscribe button. No, hit the subscribe button and let's get started. I know that for a vocal coach to tell students, even publicly here on YouTube, to not lower the key is a very, very controversial answer. Because why would a vocal coach tell his students to not lower the key if the student is struggling with the original key, right? It goes completely against the politically correct answers that most vocal coaches will give or say.
You know what? If you can't sing the key, it's okay. Just lower the key, right? Just lower the key and sing the song, and then eventually, as you get better, you can sing the original key.
That shit with a stick. So when the fuck are you going to learn to sing in the original key? When you get better, when your vocal range have improved? How? By lowering the key and singing in the song in a comfortable key? The reason why I'm so mad about this topic, and I have a lot of opinions about this topic, is because I've had students before that she went to a music school, and every time she can't sing the high notes in a song, her vocal coach got her to lower the key so that she don't have to sing those high notes. Long story short, by the time she found me on YouTube, she had already gone for 8 months of vocal lessons there, and she's still singing the same song in the same fucking key 8 months before and 8 months after. Isn't that pathetic? I just feel so sorry for the student who have wasted 8 fucking months of her time and money on those kind of vocal lessons that teach her to just lower the key whenever you feel like it's not okay, it is tight, just lower the key. And also another reason why I'm so pissed off at that is because I used to be a victim of that as well. And when I reflect back, I realized that lowering the key of a song is almost never the solution to singing well. And here's why. Because if you truly understand the implications of lowering the key of a song, I'll say there's only a few situations where I will encourage my student to lower the key, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, I want to tell you why you should never, if possible, lower the key of a song. Reason number 1, and that is most people, they suck at singing high notes because they are stuck in their low placement. And my goal here is to help them get rid of their low placement and start switching to a high complete mixed voice vocal placement. Most people have a falsetto or a head voice. It might not be well developed or stable yet, but at least you have it and you can use that to reach the high notes in your song when it's in its original key. And this is important because if you've been watching all my YouTube videos, you have been taking my course, Complete Mixed Voice 1.0, you have known by now that when you're in your head voice or falsetto, it allows you to get into your high head voice placement, which is nearer to your complete mixed voice vocal placement than your low placement. And hence, singing high notes in your head voice or your falsetto, if you can't sing in your full voice yet, doing that is actually beneficial for your full mixed voice in the long run. And that is exactly why I advocate for original key and not a lowered key. Because when you sing in your original key, you get to practice your head voice and you live in that high placement, you live in those high range more often than if you lower the key. Because when you lower the key, guess what? There's less opportunity for you to hit those high notes. And if you don't hit those high notes, most likely you'll be stuck in your chest voice, in your stubborn and heavy chest voice. Because the key is so low that you don't have opportunities to get into those high notes with your head voice, to access your head voice placement. But then what's the problem? If I can lower the key, then I can belt from my low placement. But here's the problem. When I give you back the original key, there's nothing you can do. Your voice is going to break if you try to belt, you try to add power to the low placement, because the pressure cannot be released. It's all stuck here. So if I allow you to lower the key, you are actually using less head voice, and hence you are training your head voice placement less, and instead you are encouraging the more usage of stubborn chest voice. And if you do lower the key, it means that now, instead of training your high placement, you are actually, most likely, if you're a struggling singer, you are agitating this low placement and training your notes, your singing, your so-called high notes in this low placement. Which, if you think about it, is the root cause why you can't sing high notes. Then lowering the key doesn't make that much sense anymore, does it? But when you are singing in your high head voice placement, in your head voice or your falsetto, even if you can't belt out those high notes yet, because you're training your placement now, in the long run, when you learn to compress into your high placement, you will be able to belt effortlessly. If you haven't watched my videos on learning how to belt and what you have to do first before belting easily, click the video in the cards after you're done watching this video. Now let's move on to reason number 2, and that is a psychological reason. You see, when you tell yourself, in fact, when you lower the key, here's what you are communicating to your brain indirectly. You are telling your brain that high notes are difficult and that you can't sing those high notes. That is why you lower a key. Isn't that the case here? Well, guess what? If you believe that high notes are difficult to sing, of course, high notes will become difficult to sing until you change that idea and you tell yourself and you believe in this idea that high notes are no different from low notes. They are easy, they're not difficult. When I talk about this, it reminds me of a famous quote that I've seen somewhere before, and it goes like this: a belief is a thought that you keep thinking. It is so profound, I'm going to say it again. A belief is a thought that you keep thinking. I find it to be very, very true. The reason why, let's say your name is James, because you introduce yourself as James in kindergarten, in school, at workplace. To your relatives, you introduce yourself as James since young. Therefore, you are James, right? You say, I'm James. You tell yourself that you are James, and you confirm that you are, that's right, James. It's the same when it comes to singing high notes. If you always lower the key of the song, you are actually indirectly telling yourself that, oh, high notes are difficult, I can't sing high notes, that's why I lower the key, right? Because it's strained or whatever when I'm singing high notes. Eventually, this thought, it turns into a belief, and you have successfully rejected yourself and ripped yourself of the opportunity to sing those high notes that you actually deserve to be singing. And if I were to go a bit even deeper here, another quote that's very, very true, it goes like this: it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than think your way into a new way of acting. Pretty much it means what you do, your actions, is more powerful and impactful than what you think. So it's actually easier to start singing high notes and trick your brain into thinking that high notes are easy than to sit there, lower the key, sit down and think, oh, it's okay that I lower the key now. Eventually I'll be fine. Eventually I can sing high notes. And when you understand this, you'll also understand why previously I said it is you're way better off singing your high notes in your head voice or falsetto first, instead of lowering the key and try to hit those with your chest voice. Reason number 3, and that's the last reason, is that when you're singing high notes, regardless is it a full voice, falsetto, head voice, you are actually training your cricothyroid, your CT muscles in your vocal cords, in your larynx, and they are also known as your pitch adjustment muscles. The CT muscles, they engage more for high notes and they engage less for low notes. And if we can understand this, then we'll know that singing high notes is actually going to train it to become stronger than singing low notes, because at high notes it engages more, low notes it engages less. So guess what? Once again, we are better off practicing and singing those high notes in our head voice and falsetto, because like I said, the CT muscles will always be working as long as it is high pitch. Doesn't matter what kind of voice you are in. Regardless whether you are singing the song in the original key or singing the song in the lower key, the duration of the song is the same. You're gonna get so much better results in training your CT muscles, your high notes muscles in the same duration of time, just by singing in the original key than to lower the key. And if you know me, I live by effectiveness and efficiency, and everything I do as a vocal coach is to help you achieve higher level of efficiencies and effectiveness in your singing, more specifically your high notes, regardless whether it's in your practice or in your actual singing. I hope you are convinced why you should always try your best to sing every song in its original key, especially if you're just practicing and no one is gonna hear you. There's no shame in that. Oh, I can't reach the high note with my real voice, with my mixed voice. I can only hit it with a head voice or falsetto. If you are just practicing and no one's gonna hear you anyways, there's no shame in that. Alright, it's perfectly fine. Let me get into the exceptions. At the top of my mind, I can only think of 2 exceptions where I've told my clients to actually lower the key, where lowering the key would be in their best interest for them, which is actually situation specific. So the first situation, the first exception is this: if you have an upcoming performance. Now, if you have an upcoming performance and that key is too high for you and you want to be able to express the emotions right, you want to be able to so-called belt out those high notes to create certain emotions, then you have no choice. The best interest is to lower the key. You are way better off lowering the key and singing in a more comfortable key than to try to sing in the original key but struggle on the stage. The last thing you want to happen on the stage is your voice to break, to strain, for funny things to happen to your voice. That's the last thing you want as a singer. So in that situation, I'll recommend you to lower the key. If your vocal placement is not strong enough, if your high placement is not strong enough to take those high notes yet, and also if you can lower the key, then you can play around with compression levels more. And if you know, compression level is one of the main factor, a main technical factor that creates emotions in your singing. And I've done a video talking about that before, so click the video in the cards after you're done watching this video. Now, the first exception might be obvious. Now, the second exception might not be so obvious because it is more of a teaching tool that I use. So this second exception is when I'm teaching you how to compress. Because most people, they want to learn how they can belt or compress. They can sing those high notes in their mixed voice, in their belt voice. They want to learn how to do that. And in order to do that, you can't escape compression, period. But here's the problem. Most people, they can't just compress into those high notes. If you can, you would have already done it. Does that make sense? So how I help them transition into that is I teach you how to compress the right way. Compress in your high complete mixed voice vocal placement in your low notes first. So in order to sing those low notes, guess what? We have to lower the key first. Then I can teach you how to compress the right way in your high placement for low notes. If you have watched my other video, you have known the importance of setting up your low notes right so that your high notes becomes so easy. And if you haven't watched that video, go ahead, click the video in the cards after you're done watching this video. If I were to just go a bit more deeper for you here, the reason why people have problem compressing up high is because if you look at the vocal cords muscular level, low notes, your CT muscles are not too engaged, but you are making use of a TA muscles, the thyroarytenoid muscles. They are responsible for compression. So what we then do is we can isolate the TA muscles in the low notes, and as a result, because it's isolated, you're not engaging the CT muscles too much. You only have one group of muscles that you need to take care of in the low notes, so compression becomes easier. But the problem is this: as we get into our high notes, the CT muscles comes in. The TA muscles and CT muscles have to work together, and that's where all the confusion comes in. This is a complex topic, a technical topic that I can go on and on in another video. But for the sake of this video, just understand this. When you come to me and you learn from me, chances are I will lower the key just to teach you compression level. And once you understand how to set up your low notes right, then we'll bring back the key to its original key. And then you can learn how to belt and compress into those high notes. So I hope that this video brings across the idea clearly that most of the time I will be advocating to you to never lower the key unless it is lesson time with me and I want to teach you compression or you have an upcoming performance. Aside from these two exceptions, and especially if you're practicing, keep the original key. Don't lower the key. Because singing your original key, first of all, it trains your placement. Second of all, psychologically, it makes high notes easier. And lastly, you are actually training the muscles responsible for the high notes, which all of the above three, you can never do it if you were to choose to lower the key. I know, this video is a bit controversial, but I'm putting out there. If you think otherwise, comment down below. I might have missed out some things, I don't know. But if you think that we should lower the key, tell me below in the comment section why so. And I'll see you in another video.